game starts you off with a pretty rockin' soundtrack and a nice intro sequence where we get to see space stations and giant robots and nice shading. It seems like it's going to be a very exciting space video game with a name like Heavy Nova. But this all sets you up for a major disappointment. I'll start from the beginning. I actually bought this game because I thought it was Hard Nova. Hard Nova was a space science fiction game that came out in 1990 or 91 on the PC. I used to play this when I was a kid and really liked that game, and I was thinking about it the other day that I wanted to review Hard Nova because it was like this really cool space sci-fi adventure game. I did a search for it on eBay and saw this, Heavy Nova, and thought that maybe I just remembered the title incorrectly. Wasn't aware if it came out in the Genesis or not, so I picked it up. It cost all of $1. Well, this wasn't the game I was thinking of, but I decided to try it anyway because it had a giant robot and it was on the Sega Genesis, and most Sega Genesis games were really good. Well, this turned out to be quite possibly the worst video game I've ever played in my entire life. You're a giant robot whose sole mission is destruction, and you can't even get over boulders without hurting yourself. It's hard to see on screen, but this game has the worst controls of any video game I've ever played. It kinda looks nice, it has interesting music, but it is simply unplayable. Let's look at the first boss encounter, where I'm fighting one of the 3 heavy dolls, as they're known in this game. I'm literally punching through this thing and hitting nothing, and randomly I would either hit it or it would hit me. The only way to evade punches is to duck, which makes you completely invincible. There's no way to actually hit your opponent when they're ducking. Jumping in the air, which you jump by pushing up. It's not a button. Even though you have 3 Genesis buttons on the controller, you don't use the C button at all. You have a punch button, a kick button, and you jump by pushing up. But it doesn't control in any normal way at all. So fighting is basically mashing buttons and hoping for the best. Alright, see that guy? He's floating in the air and I'm punching him and kicking him, but I'm not actually hitting him. I can't think of any fighting game where you can't hit opposing characters in the air. There's no combinations, so it randomly decides when to punch or pick up your opponent and throw them. If you're kicking the enemy, he might just jump in midair, and then none of your kicks actually land on him. Getting back to the gameplay, after you defeat each end boss, it turns into a side-scrolling adventure game where you have to progress your way through various levels and avoid obstacles like rocks that kill you, enemy robots, they have laser beams. Graphically, the game is fairly nice, but the level design does seem somewhat uninspired. As you make your way through the levels, you run into these little robots, and you have to destroy them. The easiest way to destroy these short robots would be, of course, to kick them. But you don't kick them like normal. You swing your leg out and then hit them while your leg comes back down. The movement and the jumping is ridiculously clumsy, and it's a chore just to navigate these incredibly simple levels. But it's not fun in any way, shape, or form. My doll. They call them heavy dolls. You'd think they'd call them like your cyborg killer warrior, but no, this is your doll. And it gets even worse. So when your doll is fighting the end bosses, if you look at the bottom left of the screen, you'll see where there's a meter, which is my health meter, and below that is a power bar. least I think that's what it would be called. And you can't move at all. No matter how many buttons you mash, you can't physically move in any way, shape, or form if your power meter goes down below 2 bars. So when the enemy robots hit you and your power meter goes down and then it gets below 2, you literally just lay there on the ground, and then they randomly decide to walk around you and pick you up and smash you and throw you. You can tell that this game has almost no AI in it at all. It must have like three or four different commands that your enemies actually go through in fighting you. And they just rotate through some kind of cycle. And I really have tremendous respect for video game designers, for the most part, but this game feels as if it was unfinished. But wait, there's more! Well done, you have passed our test with a score which nobody else has achieved before. Even though I just got my ass kicked and actually had to continue the game once, I've gotten a score which nobody else has ever achieved. I can only assume that's because most people, upon seeing this game, immediately returned it. Please prepare yourself immediately. We have no time to waste. Your first mission is to attack the floating fortress under construction, which is positioned between the Arath and the moon. There, you will battle Rebel Academy graduates who have been attempting coup d'etat against us. Unfortunately, to this day, all other attempts to defeat the Revel forces have failed. Your strength is our only hope. The future of the United World Defense Forces is in your hands. Good luck. Good job proofreading. And let's move on to Mission 2. Which seems like it might get promising, like there'd be more variation in the levels, but again, the clumsy, sluggish controls make this game practically unplayable. As I'm doing my rocket kicks and destroying the bad guys shooting missiles at me, I was simply playing this game at this point to see if I could find any more typos. I wish I had a guy here that could do the announcer voice. You know, like they would do in boxing or something. Because you know, 2 of my punches just went right through that guy's face even though he was standing in front of me. A couple of his punches just went right through me, and somehow or other I picked him up and threw him. Here's a punching switch. I like the fact that obstacles in the game come at you or come from below you so quickly, because these levels are so poorly designed that even if you could react in time to stop them, it wouldn't matter because the controls are so goddamn slow. Your robot just smashes into them and starts blinking anyway. This is basically the most worthless robot ever made. I'm sorry, actually it's not a robot, it's a heavy doll. Maybe this doll needs to lose some f***ing weight, and then the controls wouldn't be so sluggish. Honestly, I can't imagine what they were thinking when they greenlighted this game. It's not even close to completion. If you could think of the worst video game you've ever played, think of playing that video game with controls that took about 5 or 10 seconds from when you pushed a button till you actually saw something happen on the screen. That's this game. And here we're at the last boss that I got to because I, quite frankly, just lost patience at this point and decided that fighting was not so much an act of skill in this game as it was sheer luck. I was really trying to figure out how to fight in this game and it made no logical sense. And it even says that your heavy doll advances levels and gets new techniques, but there's no combinations of button pushing that will get you to use those new techniques. It just does it randomly. Keep in mind when you're watching the end here that even if I wanted to get up and defend myself, I couldn't because the controls won't work if your power meter is below 2 bars. All that you can do is sit back on your couch, set your Genesis controller down beside you, kick your feet up on the table, and just watch the other heavy doll wail upon your heavy doll, because it doesn't matter, you can't fight back anyway. This goes on for about a minute, and then finally, the best scene of the game over screen, which frankly, I'm impressed that they managed to spell that correctly. This is without a doubt the worst video game on Arath.